Hey guys, welcome to God is Your CEO, How to Double Your Monthly Income. So, the purpose of this masterclass is to exist one of the deepest misunderstandings people have about business, money, and life itself. Most people do not fail because they are lazy, they do not fail because they're unintelligent or because they lack strategy. They fail because they do not understand what is actually creating their results. They believe that they are being paid by the world. They believe they're being paid by their clients, customers, employers, markets, timing, algorithms, or the economy. But that entire framework is backwards. The external is not the source. It is the distribution mechanism. And once you assign source to the external, your state becomes dependent on something unstable. And then your results become unstable too. That is why this is not really a lesson about money. It is a lesson about source. It is a lesson about identity. It is a lesson about the relationship between the I am, the subconscious mind, and the physical results you call your life. Because identity is what manifests. Identity is the accepted self. It is the stabilized I am. It is the pattern your subconscious has agreed is true. And reality, over time, has no choice but to reflect that pattern. People do not merely manifest what they desire. They manifest what they are. So the real issue is not, how do I make more money? The real issue is, who am I being in relation to money, business, God, and life itself? Because your business, your income, your stress patterns, your ceilings, your self-sabotage, your inconsistency, your procrastination, your emotional volatility are all answering that question right now. And so the first error, believing the world pays you. This has to be broken. It's the lie, systematically. The world does not pay you. You need to remind yourself this. Luke 17:21, the kingdom of God is within you. The lie is that the external world pays you. It does not. The external distributes. It does not originate. The external is a channel, not a source. The heart, that is the heart of this whole masterclass. You are not paid by the world. You are being paid through the world. And that distinction will change everything. Because what you call money appears through physical events. A client signs, a customer buys, a deal closes, revenue lands in your account. And because the event is physical, the mind assumes the event is the cause. It is not. It is the last domino. By the time money shows up physically, aka manifested, the deeper cause has already been set in motion. The physical plane is the plane of effect, not the cause. And that is why people live backwards. Everything that has been created in this physical world has been created in the mind of someone. The mouse pad existed in the mind. The phone existed in the mind. The spoon once existed in the mind. Nothing in this physical dimension can exist without the mind first being involved. And that is why in the Kabbalion, the first universal law states that the universe, we live in a mentalized universe. The universe is mental, the law of mentalism. We live in a universal subconscious supermind. And so the way that I raise my hand is that my brain is registering to our body that I now want to raise my hand. And so now my hand is being raised. But it's happening so unconsciously, so quickly, that you're not even registering that your brain is telling the rest of your body that you want to raise your hand. You just know that you want to raise your hand. And so anything that is happening in the physical dimension is happening because the brain is the cause. And so when something shows up in your physical world, whether it be something positive or negative, a client signing or a client not signing, it's because that event was manifested on a deeper level of how reality is created. And I'll get to that. So the physical plane is the plane of effect and not the cause. And this is why people live backwards. This is why people get stuck. And this is why people stay in the same revenue cycles. Sales drop and they blame the market. Clients leave and they blame the economy. Leads slow down and they blame timing. Revenue dips and they let the dip redefine them. And every time they do that, they reinforce the same belief. The external world controls me. And that is what keeps them weak. Because once the external world becomes your source, your identity becomes dependent on the world. Your confidence rises when numbers rise. Your confidence fails when numbers fall. Your certainty only exists when there is proof. Your peace disappears when conditions shift. That is not power. That is dependency. And dependency always produces unstable money. In the outer world, if the outer world can change your state, then the outer world is still your authority. And whatever controls your state is your functional God. That is why this title matters. God as your CEO is not just a phrase, it is a correction of authority. It means the external world is no longer the authority over your identity. It means the visible realm is no longer what tells you who you are. It means you stop taking orders from effects and start operating as the cause. And so let's talk about the structure of how reality is formed in relationship to money. To understand money, you have to first understand reality. Reality does not begin on the physical plane. It ends there. Creation unfolds across three planes: spiritual, mental, and physical. The spiritual plane is awareness itself. I am that I am, Exodus 3:14. The observing presence behind your thoughts, your personality, and your emotions and your feelings. And so the way that I've conceptualized this is, for example, in my last video, the Batman Bruce Wayne example. You see, Bruce Wayne is operating as Bruce Wayne throughout the day. And so if something happens, let's say he's in a bank and Joker comes in and he's holding everyone hostage, everyone else is scared because they don't want to die and because they're scared of Joker. But Bruce Wayne is the one calm, controlled in the situation. Why? Because on a deeper level, Bruce Wayne knows that he's Batman. He knows that he's going to be okay. He knows that he can get out of this. He knows that he can save himself. He knows that he's talented, skilled enough, experienced enough to get out of this situation and save the day. Most people are operating as Bruce Wayne, but they have identified themselves with the world, and so they forget that they're Batman. And so the spiritual plane is pure awareness itself. It's the one observing your reality. You are not the thoughts in your head. You're the one observing your thoughts. You're not the feelings in your body. You're the one observing the feelings in your body. And so the spiritual plane, where a reality exists from, is the pure awareness of life itself. You are the one observing your life, not just experiencing it. And so creation unfolds across three planes: spiritual, mental, and physical. The spiritual plane is awareness itself, the I am, the observing presence behind thought and personality. The mental plane, where I call identity, is where identity operates through beliefs, assumptions, expectations, imagination, and subconscious programming. This is where your identity was created through observations, thoughts, beliefs systematically, what you experienced in your childhood, ages 0 to 7. The physical plane is the visible world that you see with your eyes. The visible world of money, outcomes, business, circumstances, conditions, and other people. So the real sequence is this: being who you are being on a deeper level creates your identity, how you assume, how you expect, what you believe about yourself in the world, and then that creates your results. Or spiritual, mental, physical. This means what you see is the end. What you see physically in the physical world is the end. What has been created in your eyes is the last domino. That is what you have been manifesting to get that. So revenue dips, you missing a trade, a client ghosting you, money hitting your account, you closing a client on a call, you manifested that based on those deeper levels of how reality is created. What you call business results is the end. What you call money is the end. What you call circumstances is the end. So when you try to fix life only on the physical plane, you are trying to change a result that has already been decided upstream. It's like trying to change the reflection without touching what is standing in front of the mirror. How do you expect the mirror to smile at you if you're standing in front of it not smiling? That is why people get stuck. They keep trying to fix revenue, leads, funnels, offers, content, pricing, hiring, strategy, but all of those are effects. The real question is always, who is the person generating these results? Because if that person does not change, the same pattern will keep expressing itself. Different offer, same ceiling. Different month, same emotional pressure. Different strategy, same instability. Different level, same self-sabotage. This is not bad luck. This is your identity reproducing itself. Your business is not betraying you. It's revealing you. It is showing you what you believe about money, what you expect, what you fear, what you feel is normal, what you can emotionally hold, and what part of you is still attached to struggle. And so, what you need to conceptualize is identity is your payment system. Identity is not just a concept. Identity is the mechanism. And that is why God's name is I am that I am. Identity. Identity is the mechanism of life itself. You are not paid for what you merely do. You are paid for what your identity has normalized. And that is why two people can do the same thing, the same results, the same offer, the same strategy, even have the same team, yet get paid for that completely two different ways. Because one has an identity for more. One knows that they're worthy of more. So you are not paid for what you merely do. You are paid for what your identity has normalized. This is why someone can hit a new level and then drop back down. It is why someone can make more money and then lose it. It is why someone can scale and then collapse under the weight of what they have created. Because their identity has never changed. It's like some of my clients I work with, there's a few day traders that I work with where you can see this live that they'll make money, they'll hit their ceiling, and then they'll self-sabotage them way back to the bottom of the level of wealth that is normal to them. And so the loop keeps them in a cycle of a revenue stream where they make more money than they're used to. Their body self-sabotages because their internal ceiling is like, this amount of money is now normal for me. And so what took them to the top, which was their system, their P&L, their ratio, whatever took them to the top, the moment they hit a baseline that they're not used to, they expand past what they know. They start self-sabotaging. They make riskier plays. They even start spending the money recklessly. They start doing things opposite of what got them there unconsciously because that level of wealth is rejecting their nervous system. And that keeps them in a loop. They make more money, they hit their wall, and then they go back downstream. And then they lock in, they make more money, they hit their ceiling, and then they unconsciously self-sabotage and they go right back to the bottom. And it keeps them in a loop. And they're like, why am I making money, but I can't stabilize it? Because your identity never changed. Reality always tends to reorganize around the internal baseline of what feels normal. If 10K a month is normal, you stay there. If 50K is normal, you move there. If 100K a month is normal, your behavior, perception, and emotional regulation begins to support it. Not because you deserve it, but because that is what you are. You do not experience what you want, you experience what you are. And identity is always present tense. And that's why I always say to my clients, how many people consciously want more? You can speak to anyone down the street. Do you want to make more money? Do you want a better job? Do you want to have a better relationship? Do you want a better body? Everyone's like, yeah, I want to hit my goals. I want to make more money. I want to lock in and have a better diet. I want to go to the gym. I want to do this. I want to do that. How many people actually get there? So it's not because you don't get what you want. You get what you are, Matthew 13:12. And so you are always someone right now. Not when the money comes, not when the funnel works, not when the market turns around, not when you finally get enough proof. Now, you are either being the one who already has or the one who is still trying to get there, Mark 11:24. Those two identities create completely different realities. The one who is trying is still stabilized in lack. The one who already has is stabilized in abundance. That is why I am that I am matters so much. And so let's talk about the I am principle and why God as the source changes everything. I am is not just language. It is the point at which consciousness defines itself. And once consciousness defines itself, pure awareness, reality begins organizing around that definition. That is why the teaching of believe you have received it is not motivational. And this goes into what God says in Mark 11:24. Whatever you pray for it as if you already received it in gratitude. And so believing you have received it is not motivational. It is mechanical. It is metaphysical. It is present tense identity. It is the instruction to occupy the state now that you would otherwise postpone until results arrive. Most people do the opposite. They say, when I make more money, then I feel secure. When the business grows, then I'll relax. When things finally stabilize, then I'll move like the next level version of me. But again, that is not how reality is structured. The physical world is the last domino, and it's an effect. And so you get stuck in effect, you get stuck in a loop, and you can power through a loop. You can break it temporarily, but you'll go back to who you've been being this entire time. The subconscious does not create from your future fantasy. It creates from your present identity. If you keep telling yourself that the next self is later, the next level is later, it keeps reflecting not now. So, God as your CEO means this. You stop allowing the physical world to define you. You stop letting numbers tell you who you are. You stop waiting for proof to authorize your identity. You begin from the internal, I am, in your consciousness, in your awareness. You define yourself from there. I am the person that makes X amount of money, not your fantasy, right? You can't go from making 5K a month to 500K. So go from 5 to 10, start operating in your self-concept as the version of yourself who can make 10K a month. You begin from the internal, I am. You define yourself there. You stabilize self there. And then the outer world begins conforming to who you're being in the present moment. Because if results are what give you identity, then the moment results fluctuate, identity collapses. But if your identity is established in the deeper levels, I am, then results become reflection, not just authority. And this is why money feels hard for people. Most people do not have a money problem. They have a subconscious definition of money, of a subconscious problem with money. Because the subconscious mind does not respond primarily to logic. And remember, the subconscious mind is the part of you that's manifesting. It responds to emotional intensity. It forms its deepest meanings through emotionally intense experiences and emotionally intense observations. So consciously, someone may say, money is freedom, expansion, options, generosity, security, love. But subconsciously, money may mean stress, pressure, conflict, responsibility, survival, judgment, loss of peace. And if that is the subconscious definition, then the person is split inside of themselves. One part wants more. The conscious mind says, yeah, I would love more money. But then another part is trying to protect them from what that more means in their definition of it internally. This is why identity work is not motivational. It is a conflict resolution. If money subconsciously equals stress, then when you say, I want more money, your system hears, I want more stress. If success equals pressure, it hears, I want more pressure. If visibility equals judgment, it hears, I want more judgment. So what happens? The subconscious either avoids the thing or it distorts the thing. It avoids the thing through procrastination, hesitation, inconsistency, undercharging, emotional scattering, and self-sabotage. Or it lets the thing in, but only through the old definition. So now you make more money, but with more chaos. You get more clients, but with more pressure. You grow the business, but lose peace at the same time. So the issue was never money. The issue was the meaning attached to the money. And here is another layer. Most people do not just fear failure. They fear what success will cost them. More visibility, more responsibility, more people needing them, more judgment, more expectations, more distance from old relationships. So consciously, they want more, but subconsciously, they fear what more will force them to become. And that is why they cap themselves. And so if you have a subconscious definition of money being stress, pressure, not judgment, then how can your world give it to you? And even when you align with a version of yourself that makes money, you manifest money in the form of the external world, whether it be your business, a client, a deal closing, your job, you get more of what that definition means. Oh, I have to pay my bills, or this comes up, or there's something wrong with the car, or this machine broke, or now we have to pay for this. You're just manifesting what that thing means to you subconsciously. And this is why you cap themselves. This is why you self-sabotage, because you're in a loop of your life where you're saying you want more money, but your subconscious mind is saying you want what money has been defined to you. And most people don't even realize that they have a subconscious definition with money, because their conscious mind is like, yeah, I want more money. Yes, I want to be rich. Yes, I want to be successful. Yes, I want to be financially free. But again, how many people are saying they want those things? They want a better life. They want a better relationship. They want a better body. They want to eat better. They want to stop smoking. They want to stop doing drugs. They want to stop drinking alcohol. But how many of them actually change? And so nobody pays you but you. Nobody pays you but you. This does not mean the external event is fake. It's not just that the external world is a simulation. It's a matrix. It means the external event is not the origin. People are instruments through which you pay yourself depending on your internal stability. The world is a delivery system. Money comes through it, not from it. So when a client pays you, that moment was not created in that moment. It was the physical expression of an internal cause already set in motion. The 3 layers of existence: mental, spiritual, mental, physical. This is why internal stability matters so much. Internal stability means your emotional security is no longer being decided by fluctuation, by the external results. You do not become desperate when things slow. You do not panic when a deal falls through. You do not collapse because one week is quiet. You do not let the current scene dethrone your identity, because your source is not being questioned. Because your source is not being questioned. Well, your source is now being questioned when you let the external dictate your identity. And the more stable your identity is, the more stable your income becomes. The more volatile your identity is, the more volatile your money becomes. And so the understanding of this metaphysically is that stop looking at the external world as the origin, as the source for how everything is moving for you. The external world is not the origin. Everybody is just an instrument to get money to you. It's like a channel. And that is why money is synonymous with water, currency. And so money flows through these channels like instruments. And it manifests in the form of people, events, circumstances, conditions in which that thing can come to you. And so if you rely on the external world as the origin of creation, your business becomes stuck in the external world, in the events of the external world. And so you become dependent on the results that your business is creating. But you have to understand that the motion that you had in your business was created on the deeper levels of reality. You were already setting it in motion on who you are being internally. But you forgot that, because then the external world started changing. And then you started relying on the external world to tell you what is going on with your business, what is going on with money, what is going on with your results, what is going on with your social media, what is going on with you. And so the source of everything is not the external. It's your internal state that is creating your external state. And that is why in the law of correspondence in the Kabbalion, it says, as within, so without, as above, so below. And that is why God warns you in Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed by the world. Be renewed by a transformation of your mind. And this is why action alone does not double your income. This is where high performers get trapped. I see it all the time. They think the answer is doing more content, more calls, more pressure, more hours, more brute force. But action does not create reality in the way most people think. Action expresses identity. Action midwives what is already present internally into form. So if you try to change your reality exclusively through action while remaining the same person internally, you produce strain rather than stable expansion. You cannot change an effect by changing an effect. You can only change an effect by changing the cause, as within, so without, as above, so below. That is why someone can have the right systems, the right tools, the right model, the right information, experience, and still remain stuck at a ceiling. And someone else can have less polish, less experience, less intelligence, and still move faster. That violates the logic of effort, but it is perfectly consistent with the logic of identity. Because business is responding to identity, not just effort. And so when I say how to double your monthly income, what I really mean is this. How do you become the person for whom that level of income is normal? Because if you become that person, your actions start landing differently. Your perception sharpens. Your decision making changes. Your emotional regulation changes. Your concentration changes. Your behavior stops contradicting your desire. And now the same amount of action can produce a different result because it's no longer being carried by the old identity. And so I'm going to give you the framework very quickly of how I do this with my clients to get them to double, triple, quadruple their monthly income. And so how does this get solved? Phase 1, source correction. First, remember Romans 12:2, detach from the false source. Clients are not your source. The market is not your source. Algorithms, the business is not your source. God, your connection to God, I am that I am. Luke 17:21, the kingdom of God is within you. God, the internal I am, pure awareness before conditioning is the source. This is where you stop outsourcing the power to the external world. This is where you stop living as an effect. You go within. You make a decision and say, I am this person already. You make a decision despite your external circumstances. I am that I am. Exodus 3:14, Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed. Mark 11:24. Whatever you ask for, you have already received it. Phase 2. The subconscious diagnostic. Because remember, you don't get what you consciously want. You get what your subconscious has defined as normal. And so if money being pressure is normalized, instead of manifesting just money, you manifest more pressure, or you don't manifest the money consistently because your mind is saying he doesn't want money, he wants more pressure. And so you avoid it. Subconscious diagnostic, phase 2. This is how you identify your current pattern that is keeping you in a loop. Write down what your current monthly ceiling is, what your current revenue is, and then write down what happens right before you progress. What happens right after progress? What do you become around higher pressure? What has money felt like in your life? What has success cost you emotionally? What subconscious meaning have you attached to more income? This is where you uncover the real definitions. Money, is it stress? Is success pressure? Are you afraid of being visible to be judged? Is growth really a burden? I had a client of mine that told me that when he bought his Porsche, he would park it away from people so that no one would see that he had it. And he would talk low about how much money he was making because he was scared of how people would judge him because he's rich. You see, he grew up so poor that he thought that having money meant that he was better than everybody else, and he didn't want to be better than everyone else. He wanted to be like everybody else. And so he thought that money was evil. He thought having money meant that he was a bad person because everyone else around him was struggling. And so he was self-sabotaging his own success for 20 years. because he really believed that money meant he was bad and that he was evil to have it because everybody else was struggling. But I made him see that if he had more money in his business, he would be able to pay his people more anyway. And by allowing him to change how he was viewing his relationship with money, now his business is going to change. And so that's why I'm saying it's not just money that you have to figure out your definition of. You have to figure out what your subconscious definition of what money means to you. And until this is exposed, you stay divided. You say you want it, but you get more of what it actually means for you. Phase 3, identity reconstruction. Now you choose the new polarity, the new identity, not shallow positive thinking, the real redefinition. Money is clean in my hands. Money amplifies internal order. Money expands capacity without stealing peace. Success deepens the right relationships and filters the wrong ones. Money, more income creates more spaciousness, not more burden. Having money means that I can fill the people in my life with more happiness, more love, more abundance. Money is safe to have. I feel comfortable having money. You need to choose a new polarity, a new way of positively thinking about what money really means and how money really is. Because those beliefs you inherited on the journey, whether through childhood or whether through your experience in your business, were things that you picked up on the journey. But that's not what your definition has to be, because you have to remember, if a belief does not serve you, it exists to destroy you. And so now you need a new identity. You need a new baseline. You need a new normal. And so you need to stop relating the desired income like a pedestal and start relating to it like a standard. You neutralize it so it can become normal. When something is normal, you can hold it. When something is on a pedestal, you keep it above you. Just think about dating. Whenever you met anyone dating and you thought, well, like, oh my God, they're so hot, they're so cool, they're so amazing, you pedestalized them, and then you unconsciously rejected yourself and they rejected you. You manifested that rejection. The moment you lowered the pedestal, you're like, I don't want that person. I don't really like them that much. What happens? Especially when they're the opposite sex and they were attracted to you. You're like, I don't really like them that much. They were all over you. They couldn't get enough of you. Why? Because you didn't need it. You normalized it. You neutralized it. You said, I don't care. But the moment when you want something really bad, you reject it because it's not normal. And so you need to start relating to the version of yourself that is making the amount of money that you want. That is what identity reconstruction means. If you're struggling to make more money, if you're stuck in a revenue ceiling, it means your money has a definition to you where it's rejecting you in your reality. And so you need a new definition of what money means. And so you need to start thinking as the version of you that is making the amount of money that you want. And they think money is normal. They know money amplifies their life. They know money expands them. They know money makes everything around them better, but it's not just a conscious thing. It's like, oh yeah, money can make my life better. Oh yeah, money is cool. Yeah, I would like more money. It's an inner knowing that money, success, visibility is your birthright. You deserve it. It's your standard of living. Luke 17:21, the kingdom of God is within you. Money is your birthright. You deserve it. It's yours. You were born to be wealthy. It's not something that you have to earn. It's something that you already were, because creation doesn't make mistakes. And so you need a new polarity. Instead of fearing money, self-sabotaging with money, having a wrong definition of money, you need a version of yourself where money comes in to their life. And it means more peace, more success, more happiness, more love, more bliss, more fulfillment, which attracts more money. Because it's not the excitement, it's the neutralization. And so when money comes into your life, it needs to be normalized. You need to treat it the same way you brush your teeth in the morning. Whatever. That's how you get more money into your reality. Phase 4, present tense installation. Now you be it now, not fake it, be it. Think from that version of yourself. Decide from it. Interpret from it. Respond from it. Hold from it. Stop saying one day I'll be that, and stop saying when the money comes I'll move differently. You occupy the identity now. Phase 5, stabilize under contradiction. This is where most people fail. Life will test your identity. A slow week will test it. A missed close will test it. A surprise expense will test it. A dip in performance will test it. Most people relapse here and then say the process does not work. But the test is the installation. If you remain in the new identity when the old reality tries to trigger the old self, the subconscious begins to accept the new self as real. Let me say this again. If you remain in the new identity that you're building, the new version of yourself where that level of wealth is normal, even when the old reality is going to test you, something happens that tries to test you. If you remain in the new state when the reality tries to test you, when something shows up that you do not like, the subconscious starts to accept that the new self is more real than the event happening to you in the present moment. And that is when the things start to change in the external world. That is when it decides, okay, his current baseline or her current baseline has now expanded. Because remember, the subconscious has to restore equilibrium based on who you've been this entire time. And so if 10K a month has been what you've normalized and you're trying to manifest 15, 20, when reality tries to test you when you decide you're a new version of yourself that is making 20K a month, if you pass that test by not reacting, by staying in that new identity that you're building, the subconscious mind now triggers that expansion is true, more real than the event happening to you in the present moment. However, if you react to the event long enough with your emotion, you're telling your mind, right? Because emotion is energy in motion, emotion. You're telling your mind that event is real and that event is your identity. And that is why that gets people into a loop where they're like, this always happens to me. I'm never good enough. Money always rejects me. My business is hard. There's always something happening. There's always something going on. That is where that happens. And so you need to stabilize the new identity under any contradiction. This is where Romans 12:2 comes into place. Do not conform to the world. Be renewed by a transformation of your mind. Stability is what converts the internal change into the external permanent. This is how reality reorganizes around who you're being. You don't care about the external circumstances. You know that you're going to get there anyway because God is the source. And then phase 6, detachment, conviction, embodiment. You need detachment so you start becoming what happens. Detachment is not caring. It is remaining yourself regardless of what is happening around you. You need conviction so you stop negotiating with appearances. Conviction is stabilized inner certainty. It is the end of inner debate. And you need embodiment because identity is not real until it starts showing up in posture, pace, tone, standards, decision making, and how quickly you recover under pressure. That is the full sequence. Source correction, block removal, identity reconstruction, present tense installation, stabilize it, detach, raise your conviction, and embody that version of yourself. And so what doubling your income actually looks like. Doubling your income does not begin the day the money doubles. It begins the day the identity changes. It begins the day you stop acting like your current ceiling is who you are. It begins the day you stop worshiping action as cause. It begins the day you stop kneeling to numbers. It begins the day you stop making the current scene your authority. And it begins the day you become unavailable for the old definitions. Unavailable for money as stress, success as burden, growth as loss of peace, pressure as identity, slow periods of self-doubt. Now the game changes. Now your business stops being a battlefield and starts becoming a mirror. Now money becomes a reflection of identity, not the thing that grants it. Now God is actually your CEO because the internal I am is where authority begins. Now your business becomes a channel. Now your clients become instruments. And now your income becomes a reflection of internal order. And from there, doubling your income stops being mystical. It becomes a structural consequence of being different. And so you are not paid by your business. You are not paid by your clients. You are not paid by the world. You are paid by God. But God does not pay the identity that is stabilized in lack. Matthew 13:12. God pays the identity that is waiting. Does not pay the identity waiting for proof to become itself. God does not pay the version of you that keeps saying, I will have. The identity that gets paid is the one that already has. Internally. Present tense. Now. That is identity. That is source. That is the real payment system. And that is how you double your monthly income. And if you want to do it faster, hit the link in the description and book a call with me. And I'll see you in the next video.